Hi everyone, today I'm going to introduce to you a 420 liquid AIO coming from Geometrix Future, known as the Eskimo Pro 42B. I'd like to thank Geometrix Future to have provided this unit for me to share with you guys, and to Block Soda to have done the arrangement on the delivery. You're provided with an instruction manual showing you how to mount the liquid AIO to your processor, and a counter check of all the accessories over here. The AMD bracket, the AMD standoff screws, the Intel bracket, Intel spacer, Intel standoff screws, mounting board for both platform, which is Intel and AMD. A bag of screws, total of 12, for you to mount your radiator to your case. A tube of thermal paste, a spatula, an Intel bracket, back plate I should say, and two extension cables which is meant for you to connect to your radiator fan. One is a 4-pin PWM fan connector, the other one is the ARGB connector. This is the main unit. I've taken off the fans, which I'll talk about it later. Starting off with the build and structure of the radiator. This is of a 420mm size. The build quality is very good, very sturdy, it doesn't wobble. At both ends of the radiator, you have a very subtle label or logo known as Geometrix Future. Same goes to the other end. See, nicely done. For the fin stack, this is 19 fins per inch. And at this end, where you see the butt holding the tube, these are not swivelable. Else on the block, these are swivelable. The tube length is of 450mm, and both of these tubes are nicely braided. See? And it does come with clips to hold the tube in place. Coming to the pump, on the surface, this is where the ARGB effect is, and it does have a nice grill pattern on the surface. The block itself looks very squarish. In fact, there are round corners at each edge, and the whole casting is made of plastic. Flipping to the back, a very large surface cold plate, where I believe this will absorb a lot of heat to give good thermal results. On the pump itself, it does come with two cables, one which is a 3-pin 5V ARGB, which is for the ARGB effect on the surface, and this is to be plugged to your motherboard, and to make use of your motherboard ARGB utility to control the effects. Next will be this 3-pin pump header. Now, I like this kind of headers for the pump, where it runs the pump at a consistent speed. And for your info, the max RPM on this pump is at 3500 RPM. And if you find that it's very noisy, you can tune down at a consistent rate. But on UEFI, you will need to set, instead of PWM mode, you will need to set the pump header to DC mode, where you can regulate either 7V, 10V, or 12V. 12V is max, which run at 3500. So if you want it quieter or lower, right, you can set it probably, I would say 9V or 10V, which run below 3500 RPM, but at a consistent rate. Now, why is it so important to run the pump at consistent rate? Based on the fact that if you are to run it PWM mode, which some of the AIO do, right, having the 4-pin connector, right, which is based on temperature. So at certain temperature, you will just pump your motor. Then when it's lower temperature, right, you will just lower down the motor. If you are going to consistent to do this in a prolonged period, right, your pump will wear and tear in no time. So it's best to run it at consistent rate. Now, speaking of which, the design of the pump, this is a 3-phase 9-pole kind of design, and it's running off ceramic bearing. Now as for the measurement, starting off with the radiator, from here to here is at 456 millimeter. From here to here is 140 millimeter. And as for the thickness, this is at 27 millimeter. If you are to add the fan, which the fan is 25 millimeter, total you'll be getting 52 millimeter. Now coming to the pump, be it whether to top to the bottom, left to the right, this is at 71.5 millimeter, and the height of this pump is at 54 millimeter. These are the radiator fans, which is the 140 millimeter in size, and the thickness is 25 millimeter. The build structure though is not very sturdy, but I'm not worried about it based on the fact that if I were to place this on the radiator or the case fan tray, right, this when mounted are very sturdy. Now starting with the design of it, kudos to Geometrics. They have done a wonderful job. All the in-depth details, like the fan frame where you have the Geometrics Future imprint on the frame itself, and the interior of the fan frame, which you have the golf fight patterns on both sides, or should I say the whole interior. Now this pattern is not only meant for show, but they do reduce noise. And back to the front, where you have 4 anti-vibration rubber grommets. Same goes to the back. And at the side, you have a nice design geo with these cutting blades. And this is of a 9-blader that has a O logo, which you have GEO Geo, which is the O logo over here. Nicely done. Now I like 9-blader fans based on the fact that, okay, when I do this, right, see, it doesn't wobble. This is one factor. Now back to where I was. I like 9-blader fans based on the fact that with this curvature, right, it will draw tons of air, and it does proven when I test it. It's not only good on radiators, but you can use this as a case fan. Now speaking of which, right, these are known as the Squama 2303 14B, which the behind labeling, right, it's 14 represent the 140 mm fan and B as black. They do come in 2 colors, which is black or white, and they also come in reverse blade, where, take for example, if this is the reverse blade, right, the model will be 2503 14RB. Else if it's white, right, the behind will be 14RW. Now this fans, each end does come with 2 splitter, whereby one is meant for your 4-pin PWM connector to your motherboard that controls the fan blade in terms of RPM and such. Next will be the ARGB connector, which is a proprietary 3-pin connector, and this is meant for you to daisy chain to the rest of the fans. And when you daisy chain up all the fans, at the end of the fan, okay, let me just do this. The cable will be rather short. Okay, if I do this, see, assuming you have done all, the cable will be rather short. So in the package, as mentioned to you earlier, they come with 2 extension cable. One is for your 4-pin, the other for your 3-pin. Now besides this, the specs of the fans, let's have a closer look. These fans are rated 12 volt DC and drawing current at 0.34 ampere just to push the blade. And as for the ARGB, it's at 0.9 ampere. Now speaking of the ARGB, I like these fans a lot, though I personally do not like ARGB, but this ARGB are very different. A very slick, sharp line around the frame, be the front or the back, which I will show you later. This is how it looks like when I piece back the fans back to the radiator, and the daisy chain, as you can see, is neatly tucked. There are no cable mess and such. The only thing left is only the splitter cables with the extension to worry about. By the way, these fans are rated at a max RPM of 2400. Preparation on the Intel platform. This liquid AIO do support various LGA socket, starting from the legacy, which is 2066, 2011, 2011 B3, and of course the 1200. As for the latest ones, which is 11.5X, the 1700 socket, which is this, and the 1851, they do support that too. First thing you need to do is to prepare the cold plate, or should I say the block. Face the cold plate towards you or upwards. Make use of this bracket. Take note on this bracket, on each corner there will be an arch. This is arch in. Make sure that the arch is facing upwards. So align this to the cold plate. And on the cold plate itself, right, take a look at this. This is a grooving. Make sure that this arch slot near to the grooving, which you can see over here. See, this is the correct way. And make sure you tuck this bracket right underneath this protective tape. Okay, once you have done this right, see, the arch is towards the groove. Then you can turn it clockwise to secure it. This is done. Once you've done this right, you can leave this one side. Next is to prepare the motherboard. As mentioned to you, right, there are various sockets that support using this liquid AIO. For the back plate, it is only applicable to 11.5X, 1700 socket, and also the 1851 socket. If you are not using this socket, right, which is the legacy, you will need to use this standoffs, where the way to mount it on the motherboard itself, make sure that this short thread right is facing downwards and the long thread is facing upwards. But for now, I'm not going to show you this as I don't have those motherboards. I will just show you on the 1700 socket. Now on the back plate itself, right, when you flip over, you will see markings that state 11.5X, 1700, and the last one which you can ignore. Now for the 1700, right, it's also meant for the 1851 socket. So you need to fix this point to whichever socket that you use. Right now I'm using the 1700 socket, so I will set it to 1700 socket. Do the same to the rest. Once you've done this, flip your motherboard to the back. Next, plug this in, the 4 screws towards the 4 holes on the motherboard. Align it properly and you'll just glide in properly, nicely. See, this is done. Now something which I would suggest Geometrix Future to do is to have a double-sided tape to be on the back plate, so that when you place this in, right, the back plate will hold together with the motherboard. So when you flip it over, right, see, without the tape, take a look, what happened? It just sawed off. Now this is actually very minor, as this can be secured, the back plate can be secured to the board with this spacer over here. Now do take note on the orientation of the spacer. If you were to place it correctly, right, it will be showing more thread. Okay, let me just show you. Now, as mentioned to you, see, this is exposing more thread. This is not exposing more thread. If it's not exposing more thread, right, then this is the incorrect mounting. You will need to flip to make sure that it shows more thread. Same goes to the bottom over here. So make sure you do it correctly. Once in place, right, push the spacer down. See, it will lock in place. So this is secured and your back plate will be whole. So as mentioned to you, right, the back plate, as I mentioned earlier, best is actually to have a double-sided tape, but that's very minor based on the fact that this spacer, right, can hold the back plate. But when you're doing this, right, make sure you're doing outside of the case and not inside of the case. If inside of the case, right, it's rather clumsy. Alright, let me just zoom out. Now, next thing to do is clean the processor with alcohol, apply thermal paste. Next, which is this, the AIO block, remove this tape from the cold plate. Okay, this is very important. Then clean it with alcohol, and you can mount it by aligning this 4 ends over here to the screws over here. And when you mount it in, right, make sure that the hose is facing the RAM. Then when you're screwing in it, you will need to make use of this mounting bolt. And when you're doing this, right, make sure you do it alternately, as in like 1 turn over here, 1 turn over here, change direction, 1 turn over here, 1 turn over here. Then repeat the process, so that this will give even pressure to the processor. Now right now I don't have the processor, so this is just through motion. So take note on this when you apply this cold plate to the IHS when you're doing the screwing. So make it alternately until you feel that there is a stoppage. When you screw it, that means to say it's tightened. Now, assuming this is already in, next thing you will need to do is to plug the cables. The very most important cable, in fact, is the pump. Connect this to the motherboard pump header. Now, please read your motherboard instruction manual that says it's meant for water pump or AIO_pump. Do not use the CPU fan or CPU fan 1 or CPU op and such. Just make use of the AIO pump. Reason for this, right? Most of the AIO pump header on the motherboard will supply more amperage to secure your pump to run consistently at a consistent power. So make sure you plug this to the pump, which I know that this is at the first slot, so I just plug it in. Next thing, which is most important also, which is your fan, radiator fan, PWM fan connector. Okay, this is to cool off the radiator, so make sure you plug this in too. So I'll plug this 4-pin PWM fan connector to the CPU fan 1. Okay, once it's done, next is to tackle the ARGB connection. Now you know that the pump itself have one ARGB connection, and the fan itself also having ARGB connection. And imagine that your motherboard does not have 2 ARGB header like what I'm having right now. You will need to daisy chain both of them together, the pump and the fan ARGB. So what you can do is plug it this way, daisy chain. See, I daisy chain my pump to my fan, and on this end just plug it to the ARGB connector on the motherboard, and this is done. Preparation on the AMD platform, it does support AM4 and AM5, and this is so much easier. All is needed, make use of a screwdriver, unscrew the screws on the bracket, remove this both off, and once you have done this, right, make sure to make use of the standoff that is meant for AMD, and having the shorter screw thread facing at the bottom and the longer screw thread facing at the top. So you just screw on this mounting over here, or should I say the bracket that is on the motherboard. You don't have to screw it too tight, just make sure that it hand tight, and make sure you screw until it stops, unable to screw in even further. So this is done. Okay, next will be preparation of the cold plate. Now as for the cold plate, it's the same as Intel but a different bracket. This is meant for your AMD bracket, and as mentioned to you, right, make sure that the groove, or should I say the arch, is facing upwards. Again, align the arch, okay, the arch to the groove. See, once it's done, right, you'll be able to turn this bracket and to secure it. So right now this is secured, this is done. So next thing you need to do is to wipe your processor with alcohol, make sure it's clean, apply thermal paste. Assuming this is already done, next thing you need to do is to mount the block. Make sure you remove off this tape, clean off the surface just in case there are residue. Then you can apply this whole block to the processor and make sure that the holes are facing towards the RAM. So when you do this, right, okay, assuming you have thermal paste, so you push this down, firmly hold on it, then make use of these bolts which I showed you earlier. These are the same mounting bolts, retention bolts, which is similar to the Intel. You can use this on AMD. So mount it. Normally what I'll do is I will do it diagonally, having the pressure on the block from one finger, then the other hand I will just mount the screws. When I mount the bolt itself, right, I will just mount it till it hit a stop. Okay, not fully tighten, right? Just a gentle glide, so that I know that, see, this is hold in place. Done. Then apply to this too. Now with this said, once everything is in place, these are just anchoring the mounting bolt on the block itself. Once this is done, right, the final adjustment will be with your screwdriver. So again, do it alternately, starting on from this. I'll do one turn, here one turn, this one turn, and this one turn. Repeat the process alternately with the same, the same style that you've done. For example, you've done this first, next, followed by this and this. So just repeat until you feel that the screw bolts, right, come to a stop, tight stop. Then you know that your cold plate, or should I say the pump block, is mounted firmly to your processor, which this will provide even pressure. Then last but not least, as mentioned, the connection, most important, which is your pump connector. Okay, connect to the pump connection, which is down here. Again, reminder, make sure you plug to your motherboard pump header and not CPU fan 1 or CPU fan op or system fan and such. So make sure you do this. As I repeat again, this pump header, right, produce more amperage so that you have your pump consistently running with a good power to the pump. Then next will be the radiator fan connection, which is the 4-pin PWM fan connector. Plug this to the CPU fan 1. Okay, in fact, most of the time you should be mindful that radiator fans, right, should always go to the CPU fan 1 and not CPU fan op. Okay, some motherboards have CPU fan op, don't do that. Then next, the final step will be the ARGB. Now, as mentioned to you, some of your boards, right, might not have 2 ARGB connectors, so you can daisy chain your pump to your fan ARGB connector. Then you can plug this at the other end to the motherboard fan header, or should I say the motherboard ARGB header, and this is done. I'm just going to do a noise test regarding about the pump and the radiator fans together with the pump. Now, the pump is always at 100% load, which is at 3500 RPM. but on the readings, right, it's 3300 RPM, which is at max. So this is my microphone. Now I'm just going to place it near to the pump. And that's how it sounds like when it's near the pump. Right now I'm just going to move away, probably about here. See, this is at the pump full speed with the idle radiator fans, or should I say the idle temperature on the RPMs. I'm just going to plug this to here, place it somewhere around here, so that my microphone is away from the radiator fans. I would say about 50, or should I say half meter away. And this is how it sounds like when it's at idle. Now I'm just gonna hit the Cinebench and you'll see that the readings on my screen, right, you will see all the temperature going up and such. So that's the noise as 100% load. Right now I'm just going to let it idle. And this is at idle noise. I'm going to ramp up again on Cinebench. And this is how it sounds like at load. There we have it on the sound profile on the pump and the radiator fans. And as I mentioned to you, the design on the fan, on the frame itself, right, they have the golf ball kind of pattern. Well, that is seriously not for show. As you have witnessed, right, when I ramp up the RPM, right, it did make a sharp pitch at the beginning. But when it's as stable, take a look, it's just a humble hum. In fact, if this is placed in the case, right, I can't even hear a single noise. This is how good the noise is, as in like the sound profile. It's very, very quiet. And the pump too, super quiet. Now I'm just going to conduct the test based on the settings and such, which I will show you in my dashboard. But do take note that I'm measuring this, or should I say I'm taking the test at a room temperature of 30 degrees Celsius, which is room temperature. Okay, no joke. For the thermal test, I'll be using a Ryzen 9 7950X processor on a MSI Mota B650M motherboard. And for the RAMs, I'll be using KingBank Dark Heatsink, which is a 32GB kit with a cache latency of 28 and a bus frequency of 6000 and a voltage of 1.45 volt. And this is Expo profile enabled in UEFI. And for the PBO tool limits, which I've done in UEFI, these are the settings, where I set the PPT to 192 watt, TDC to 152 ampere, and EDC to 170 ampere, which you can witness this when I run the benchmark. As you can see here, Ryzen Master is pulled out, so you can see the reading: PPT 192, TDC 152, and the EDC 170. Now do note that even I've set this to these figures, right, it doesn't mean that the system will pull what I've set. It depends on the cooling solution of what you provided, then you will start pulling. So take note on this area here, and not forgetting the CPU temperature, the clock speed, and how much power is being drawing. And the rest of this, right, are all the stats from your motherboard, your chipset, your RAMs, and your drive. Now, ignore this chipset 1. Okay, this is stuck there. In fact, it's not working, so we can ignore this. So with this say, right, at the very beginning, what I've done is when I plug the unit to the processor, I start run 30 minutes Cinebench, which I did not record it. I just wanted the thermal paste that sit in between the cold plate and the processor, right, to settle down. And I'm making use of the original thermal paste that comes with this unit. Okay, and with this said, I run, okay, and let it go to the 5 minutes, leaving 5 minutes midpoint, because this is actually a 10 minutes run. So what happened is that at midpoint, right, as I run, see the CPU temperature is hovering pretty well, which is 84 degrees Celsius, and the clock speed amazingly is sustaining at 5 gig, based on the fact that this is actually the overall. And as you can see, the rest, right, you see it's hovering 5.2, 5.1, 7.5, and it doesn't drop. And the rest of the core is 4.9, which is very good. And on top of which, right, if you look at this clock graph over here, which is for the CPU, it is very consistent. Not much of a jagged. This is what you want to see on the processor to perform. If you see jagged lines, right, that means to say the cooling is not enough. It is struggling. It might throttle and such. But with this consistency, right, it's telling me that it does perform consistently. And with this spike over here, right, these are the max boost. Okay, besides this, looking at the rest of the temperature, it's hovering great. It doesn't go exceed 55 degrees Celsius, like your motherboard, your chipset, your RAMs, see, and even the drive. Now, if I were to plug this in the system itself, right, it probably can go up 2 degrees higher, right, and the temperature might go higher. And looking at the drawing factor, right, on this, as I mentioned to you, right, the PBT, TDC, and the EDC I've set according to these figures, right. It doesn't pull accordingly, as I mentioned, depending on the cooling solution. But looking at the stand, right, it does perform pretty well. It's going about 188 watt and so, and sustaining at this clock speed. This is impressive. And best part of all, it's very silent. Not only that, it performs. And mind you, I'm using the original thermal paste. Imagine that I use a better thermal paste. What will happen then? Probably this will drop in temperature even further, probably about 2 degrees Celsius or such. So I should say that overall, right, this cooler does perform very, very well. What do I think about the Geometrics Future Eskimo Pro 42B? I only have 3 words: simple, elegant, and very efficient. Starting with simple. As you can see, the mounting mechanism of the AM4 is pretty straightforward. You just mount the bracket, mount the standoff, and you can just apply thermal paste, whack, and go. Same goes to the daisy chain of fans, right? It's very simple. The cables are very neatly done. You don't have to mess with the cable mess. All is needed is to take care of the 2 cables that's coming off from the fan radiators. The radiator fans. And same goes to the pump. Very simple. 1 ARGB plug, 1 pump plug, and it runs at full speed, which I like so much. Another thing is that not only that, it's very elegant. Looking at how they designed the whole liquid AIO, right? Now, my camera doesn't do any justification on the center part. It didn't capture what I'm seeing right now. In fact, when this glow, right, to different colors, right, it gives me a dreamy feeling, a misty kind of feeling. It's very uniform. And I like the fact that how they design the pump, where you have the centerpiece and a rim, okay, which is represent the logo, or should I say the label Geometrics, the O, which is this. Same goes to all the fan. Very slick, sharp linings around the frame. The frame. All these are nicely done. There's something I like to add on is that you know that on the blade itself, right, this cover here, it has a O logo. If that were to illuminate, right, that will even be pitch perfect. And not only this, the fan design of all this golf ball, right, I begin to actually like it a lot. Okay, it gives a very distinctive look. And not only this, right, this does not only for show, but it does reduce the noise. As I've shown you on the sound test, right, at the beginning when I ramp up the Cinebench, it does give a certain high pitch, but right after when you normalize to the RPM, right, the pitch is gone, based on the fact with the help of all this golf ball. Now as I place my finger near the golf ball, right, I can feel that there is some twirl air around it. It's like hovering around this area, which is kind of cool. So this is one factor. And coming to efficiency, well, you'll witness it. The thermal temperature based on the original thermal paste hovers around 84 degrees Celsius and able to sustain at 5 gig and above. My goodness, that is fantastic. And most of my components are keeping cool. Now, in an open bench, this is at 84. If I were to plug in the case, right, add another 2 or 3 degrees more. That is based on normal thermal paste, which is provided in this unit. Okay, and I don't think at any time I will hit 90 degrees Celsius with this setup with the original thermal paste in the case. Imagine that if I were to fit a better thermal paste, probably I'll say the MS6 or maybe the Grizzly thermal paste, it might drop even further. In open bench, I believe it can hover at 80 degrees Celsius to 82 degrees Celsius. And when you whack into the case, right, it probably will just go max 84 degrees Celsius. That's what you see down here, default, but it's in the case. So this tells out everything. And besides this, right, how efficient as in like the noise sound profile, you have witnessed it. I've tested my microphone near the pump. Away from the pump, while testing this ramping up, right, it's silent. The only thing that you hear at the beginning, sharp pitch, right, it will be normalized. It will, filter off. So I'm comfortable enough to say that I will purchase these fans, 140mm fans. If a case allow me to mount all 140mm fans, right, I will do that. Based on the fact that these are so quiet and it performs perfectly good and there are tons of airflow. Now I hope you guys have actually enjoyed what I've shared with you. I have not much negative to say about this. Okay, some of you might not like the ARGB, but I love it so much. And with this said, I'd like to thank Geometrics Future to have provided this unit for me to share with you guys, and to Block Soda to have done the arrangement on the delivery. And for those of you actually new to my channel, welcome to my channel. If you like my content, do remember to subscribe and to click on the notification bell button. Till then, take care, goodbye, see ya.